Be in the 19th chapter of the book of Genesis. Look at a little bit here, and then we will also be over in the book of 2 Peter. I've kind of titled the message for this evening, I've titled The Cost of Lingering Where You Should Have Never Been. The cost of lingering where you should have never been. We know the story of Lot, right? I mean, we're familiar with it anyway. There's a few details we could probably refresh our memory on, but we know the story of Lot. And Lot has, by the time we get to the 19th chapter, Lot has already, his company was getting pretty good size, and his company and Abraham's company is Uncle Abraham. It had gotten kind of big, and so they divided. You got to remember that before Lot ends up down there completely and just staying, he actually goes down there, and Abraham goes and fights against the gods of Sodom. Those ones who were kings of Sodom. And the kings of Sodom and there fought against them and rescued Lot. That's already taken place. He's back there again. He should have never been in Sodom to start with, right? Matter of fact, whenever they divided up, and Abraham told him, said, you choose whichever direction you like to go. Whenever he looked and he saw the well-watered plains of Sodom, I have speculated many times that I don't believe his full intention was ever to go into Sodom, but it was the well-watered plains of prosperity. It was the peacefulness. It was the broad space that he was able to have. It was the little house on the prairie with a big house in the meadow. And that's what he was looking for. And whenever he got out there, now he's gone out there, he's already back and forth to Abraham. Abraham is pleading with God because God is angry with the sin that is in Sodom and Gomorrah. He's angry with that. And Abraham remembers that he's got a nephew there. He's been there a while. I don't know how long he's been there, but he's been there to get a pretty good sized family. God sends these angels as they come to Abraham's tent, and two of them was going to go on down, by the way, into Sodom, and one of them stayed there with Abraham, which I believe he was it says the angel of the Lord. It could have been the Lord himself there, staying to comfort Abraham a little bit. But anyway, the other two went down in there, and they went down in there with the purpose of get Lot out. That was the only purpose, really, that they went down there for. Whenever the plan was, is that Abraham said, Lord, if you find 10 righteous souls, he got down to 10. Started out with, 50. Got down to 10. I've done a little calculation, and from the reading of the scriptures, I can count at least 12 in Lot's immediate family. At least. He's got sons-in-law. That's at least 2 if you're going to put plural on sons. They have wives. He's got sons, so if you put a plural on sons, he's got more than one son. That's a couple more. He's got 2 daughters we know of. And then him and his wife, I don't know how many, but easily we should have been able to calculate it easily 10 if they would have been righteous souls there. And so we find them there. These angels have went down, and they have come to Lot's door in chapter number 19 and verse number 1. It says, and there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them. And he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. Well, this is actually not in his house right now. This is in in the gate. And he said, behold now my lords. Did y'all catch that when y'all were going through there before? He bows down and calls these angels. He recognizes them. They had an appearance that was different. They had the appearance of evidently of godliness. And Lot knew who they were, or at least knew that they were angels sent from God. And he notices this. He recognizes this. A man that is where he should not have been. And the angels came to where he was for a long time lingering. And so he recognizes them and he calls them, he bows down and falls down before the ground and he calls them lords. He said, behold now my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house. So now he's offering himself as a servant to them, and tarry all night and wash your feet. And ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. Now, at this point, Lot's thinking that they're passing through. He ain't caught on that they come to him. They coming for him. That they're coming to get him. That they're on a mission not passing through, but this is the destination. This is the disastrous location. And then they say unto him, they said, nay, but we will abide in the street all night. We're not going to go into your house. We're going to stay in the street. And he pressed upon them greatly. Why do you think? Just speculate for a little bit. Why do you think that Lot pressed on them not to stay in the street? Don't stay there. Don't live there. Why is it? Because he knew what they was doing in that city. And he knew what happened when dark fell. He knew that. And they turned in unto him and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. They sat down and ate with him. And then the Bible says in verse number 4, but before they lay down, before they went to lay down to go to sleep, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young. Have y'all noticed? You know, I've thought that you know that this homosexuality thing, you know, where it's really coming out and they're just kind of blatant. I thought, okay, that's only this younger generation, you know, from my age actually and down. They's old men. They's old men still kissing old men in the mouth. Nasty. Young and old. Old and young. All the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came in to thee this night? Where are those two angelic figures? What they don't realize is they really are. He said, bring them out unto us that we may know them. He ain't saying so we can meet them. That know them takes on a whole different ball game. And he said, and Lot went out. He said, he went out at the door unto them and shut the door after him. He just opened that door and gets out, slams the door behind him. Y'all get the picture? He's out there. He's going to go out there and settle this matter. And then that way they don't know anything about it. They can just stay in there. I'll come out here and I'll handle this thing. Remember, he's where he shouldn't ever have been. And said, I pray thee, in verse 7. That's where I'm at, right? He said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. And the word brethren is used in many different ways, by the way. And this passage is not, I don't believe he is compassionately calling them their brethren. He's calling them brethren. These are the brothers. These are the men. These are the ones that are in the same city. We're in the same thing. We're in the same location here. Not for a minute do I believe. And we'll go over to 2 Peter here in just a little bit, and we'll see where I get most of my evidence about about Lot. But there's some here as well. That Lot wasn't participating with this. I mean, he wasn't saying, "Oh, my comrades, I'll meet you at the Parliament House later." That ain't what he was saying. He was calling them basically fellow citizens of there. But he addressed them very kindly. He addressed them with a passion, for them not to continue on. And so he's trying to touch on their feminine side. Because they got one. Verse number 8 says, "Behold now, I have 2 daughters, which have not known man." That known is the same one that was up there a while ago. He said, "Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing. For therefore came they under the shadow of my roof." Now he's appealing to them. Number one, he's appealing to them that if you want to have your pleasure, I've got 2 daughters that not known a man, you can take them and do whatever. What in the world is he doing in a place that would bring him to that? What is he doing in amongst a place where, why is he lingering in a place to where it would bring him to do that? Has he lost his mind? I will tell you this, that he fears the God who sent them, who sent these angels. He fears God, but he also has a fear of the people of the city. He's got both of them going on right now. So he says in verse number 9, "And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fella came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now, will we deal worse with thee than with them?" And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot. So this is Lot we're talking about. They said, he came into this land. He weren't one of us. He come in here and he's sojourning with us. He come in here and he said, he's a judge. That tells me that they know that he has spoken out against their stuff. He's going to judge us while we'll take him. Why has he been with them all this time and they wouldn't take him? He's been with them all this time. He's been in the gates all this time. He's lived in there. He's communed with them. He has done business with them, and they wouldn't. But something has driven them to pour out and just go overboard. And now they've finally been fed up with Lot. We'll do with him worse than we was going to do with them other ones. Even Lot. And came near to break the door. Lot was just about to get his fate. He was just about to the end. He had just about come to the place where that almost, and had it not been by divine intervention of God with these angels, he said, but the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot, the men in the house, the angels there, and pulled Lot into the house to them and shut to the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great. so that they wearied themselves to find the door. The door that they was about to break in, they can't even see now. And they're wearying themselves to find the door. That tells me that they were still trying. Even after that God had struck them with blindness, they were still trying. What a filthy place to be. Why was he lingering in that place where he should have never been? They smote him with this blindness, and they wearied themselves to find the door. Verse 12. And the men said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides these? He said, son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. What all do you have here? Lot, what do you have? Not asking him how much gold and silver and possessions he's got. Not asking him about what kind of things can we carry out? Can you carry out of here to help you better? Not asking him if he has an axe, a sword, a knife, or extra clothes. He's asking him, what's your family? What family do you have? You have any besides what's here? Listen what Lot said. Or actually what the angels are still saying here. He said in verse 13, he said, for we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord. And the Lord has sent us to destroy it. First time Lot now is alerted to the imminent danger that he's in. He knows that there's a problem, but he thinks these men are going to stay for a night and they'll be going on their way tomorrow. Now he knows for a fact, this is it. There ain't no more chances. But listen to what he said here. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters. Obviously, that's what a son-in-law would be. And said, up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. He seemed like, you're crazy. What have you been drinking? There ain't been no urgency all this time. We'll come over next Saturday for the family reunion. It's almost like, hey, I got the lamb. What's wrong with you? What's the urgency? And now you're saying that oh yeah, God's going to destroy this place. God's going to destroy. Judgment is coming. Lot has lingered where he should never have been. And the cost keeps going up. The cost keeps going up. And verse number 15, and when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. Lot, we've given you all night to gather up more of them. He said, now get your wife, get your 2 daughters that are here, and let's get out. And this verse I've got marked specially in my Bible, verse 16. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, these angels, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth and set him without the city. In looking at this passage, before we get into the destruction here, and looking at this, number one, the cost, the high cost, I've heard it said and heard it preached this way as well, the high cost of low living. The high cost, and I've titled it the high cost, the cost, what it costs to linger where you should have never been. He should have never been in Sodom there. He should have never raised his kids in Sodom. He should have never been there. There's many times that missionaries and pastors have found themselves raising their children in a place where there is nothing but heathens and filth and ungodly. By the way, much to their demise, they find themselves also raising children into there to be just like the heathens that they're trying to reach. You say, well, what's the answer to that? I read many times of missionaries who left their families in the safety and protection of a good place, and they went themselves. You say, oh, preacher, that's no family life. You're right. It's not. And a lot of times God doesn't call a missionary to stay a long time. Matter of fact, the intent of a missionary is to stay long enough to get something going for the Lord and then move on. We got career missionaries now. They go to one place and they establish a work there, and they might have 3 or 4 places that they're working with. They might. Matter of fact, you go into some of these countries like Mexico and so forth, they might have 5 or 6 churches that they're helping out. But they go to one place and they stay in that one place for 40, 50 years, and they get support from the churches, and they're never self-supportive. They never have built a church that'll take care of their own. And I wonder if maybe they're similar to Lot. You know, I'm not talking about the filth and ungodliness, but I'm talking about maybe similar, that they're actually lingering in a place where they shouldn't have been in the first place. When our pastors are like that. A lot of time pastors go to a place and they go there because of the great salary the church is going to offer them. They go there because, I can go there and the parsonage that they're going to offer me has a swimming pool. There's a lot of different reasons, and we could probably add on a lot of things in there. I can go there, and they've got the most prestigious schools for my children to go to. We can go there, and all of the influential people go to that church. We can go there. Listen, there's all kinds of things, places where they shouldn't have been to start with. Now, I'm not saying that God doesn't call people there, because obviously He needs a preacher to fill that pulpit. Obviously. But there's a lot of them that are looking for the wrong reason. And Lot didn't go down there to be a missionary. He ended up being a judge unto them, but he didn't go down there to be a missionary. He went down there for prosperity. He ended up in Sodom there. He ended up there working and prospering and growing and so on. I don't know how much he had, but I'll tell you, it doesn't matter how much he had whenever he was in there and going down there. When he left with nothing. He went in, by the way, into the well-watered plains of Sodom. Whenever he went down in that direction, he went down there an extremely wealthy man. Extremely wealthy. Had a huge company. As a matter of fact, whenever he was coming through there, J.C. Penney, Target, Kmart, and all of them, they were all worried because his company was bigger than all theirs. King Ranch. Y'all ever heard of King Ranch? You ever go to buy a Ford and they got that King Ranch on there? You know what that's from? That's from a ranch out west. That's supposed to be the largest ranch, I guess, I don't know in the world, but at least in the United States, the largest ranch, most cattle and everything. King Ranch. So Mr. King was on his way into Sodom. And they probably did notice him. You can't take a man with that much wealth and that much influence and that much company there. You can't have a man come into your area and not everybody notice who he is. So he was recognizable right off the bat. He went down in there and had all that wealth. He lost all that wealth down there. He lost his family down there. Matter of fact, he even lost the conscience of his own two daughters. I know his wife, whenever she turned back and she became a pillar of salt, I get that. And I'm thinking, well, that was a wicked man. Old Lot, boy, he was a wicked man. Well, let's just go see if he was a wicked man or not. Let's see what is said in the New Testament about him. Let's go to 2 Peter. Why can't I do that now? 2 Peter chapter 2. This is the Apostle Paul. This is warning, by the way, of these wickedness and ungodliness. That judgment is coming upon ungodliness. And if you're lingering where you should have never been, it's going to cost you big. It's going to cost you big. So he says here in verse number 4, he said, "For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into the chains of darkness, to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an example unto those that after should live ungodly." Sodom and Gomorrah is an example, should be an example to every living human being. Then he says, "And he delivered just Lot." That's not just Lot, but that is a just man, justified man. Lot, he said, "vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked." He had a huge vexation on him. And this morning, whenever he was reading over there in Asa, that God had put a great vexation on the people there, because it said that for a long season they were without the true God, without a teaching priest, and without law. And God vexed them over there, that they had trouble over there. In here, it was their filthiness, it was their ungodliness, it was their moral decay that God was angry with, and there was a great vexation. But Peter describes Lot, and he says, vexation, he said, that he delivered Lot, which was vexed, he was vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. For that righteous man dwelling among them, that righteous man dwelling among them. Who is that righteous man he's talking about? Talking about Lot. He's describing Lot. And he calls him that righteous man dwelling among them. What happened? He said, in seeing and hearing. I love the detail that is there. In seeing and hearing. Not participating. Somebody wanted to allude to the fact that Lot was probably a sodomite. There ain't no way. He was not. But he was in a place he should have never been. And he was lingering there, and he was going to see the destruction, and he was going to lose everything. Everything. And he said, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. The Lord knoweth how to deliver the godly out of temptations and to reserve the unjust unto the day of judgment, to be punished. But chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness, and despise government punishment. And he goes on to describe these ones. He said, listen, there's a judgment coming. Is Sodom a warning to all of us for the judgment of God on ungodly living? You better believe it is. It was an example in that day. It's an example for us today. There's a judgment coming. I know that I've heard people say many times that God's not judging these people, and they're worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. They're worse than the days of Noah. Let me tell you something. God knows who are His, and God knows how to judge the wicked. But don't linger where you should have never been in the first place. If you find yourself in a place where you never should have been there, find the exit route. I've tried to help many young people, and they're like, well, preacher, I remember that scripture where he says that God won't put more on us than what we can bear. And they usually always stop right there. They're all like, He won't give me no more than what I can bear. And you know what the Bible said? That was actually talking about temptation. And He said that He won't give you also a way of escape. Did Lot have plenty of ways of escape? I believe that there was an open gate waiting for him to walk out. But he lingered where he should never have been. We find ourselves in a place to where we look around and we're like, this ain't good. We got this on this side and that on that side. And he vexed his righteous soul from day to day. In this conversation and this living and this filth and this ungodliness. And he was raising his children right there. And was prosperity there? Was it probably easy living? I'm sure it was. But I don't know how much more easy living you can get than what he left. The blessings of God were poured out upon him because he had an uncle that was a friend of God. He wouldn't listen to his uncle. His uncle got him out, and he went back again and got back in there again. And now his uncle is standing there, and he's pleaded with the Lord on behalf of Lot. And Lot is down there, and the angels of rescue, the rescuing angels were also the destroying angels. And they get Lot by the hand. While he lingered, while Lot was still lingering, God grabbed a hold of him. Lot did not finish well, by the way. He didn't. He finished a failure. Lot's an example unto us as well. Don't do as Lot. And you know what the Bible tells us about the judgment? He said, remember Lot's wife. Said, remember the days of Noah, but he also said, remember Lot's wife. Remember what happened to her in the judgment. While they're taken out, the angels grab them. The picture is not that Lot is like, okay, nobody else is coming, and so let's go. That's not the picture. The picture is he's lingering and lingering and lingering and staying around there, and the angels grab him, grab her, grab the two girls, and take them out by force. And they get out there a little ways. And the angels is out there and telling him, and he's like, hey, don't let me go into the wilderness. They wanted him to just go into the woods, go into the mountains, go hide. That's what the angels wanted him to do. And he pleaded with them. He said, hey, there's a little city over here. Let me go in there. He said, it's a little one, isn't it? Well, yeah, it was little. What difference does that make, Lot? So he went in there, and they're like, okay, you can go spend the night. But here's what he said. He said, go in there. He said, we can do nothing until you're gone. So the angels has got them out and got them to safety. And now the angels are like, all right, Lot, get out of here. Skedaddle. And Lot's wanting to stand around there and argue with them about where to go. And they said, because he was like, some evil's going to take me. What was the evil that you were in? That the destruction was coming. And you didn't have enough sense to get up and get out. Verse number 22 said, haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. Therefore, the name of the city was called Zoar. So he told him, he said, go on to Zoar. Go on over there. But he said, get out of here. Because here's what he said. I can't do anything. In destruction, he can't do anything until you're gone. I wonder if this could make a decent application to the scriptures in Thessalonians where it says, when he that letteth is taken out of the way. That's when destruction comes. That's when the tribulation comes. But they can't do it until he's out of the way. The angel said, I can't do anything until you're taken out of the way. I've tried to tie that in many times, and I believe in my heart and mind it ties in perfectly, as a great application. That's not the theme of it, but ties in. That there's coming a judgment day. And many of us many of those who claim heaven as their home are lingering in a place of sin where they should have never been. In a place where sin is just riddled. And you know what's bad, or even worse than that, is they continue to linger there. Why is it? Oh, we could be very compassionate with Lot. We could. We could say, well, he's got family there. He needs time. He needs time to convince them. He needs time to gather them all up. You know what's one of the worst things is in the mind of a parent or grandparent or whatever, is the fact that you come to a realization that in all likelihood, when the judgment comes, or some of your family ain't going. They're going to be destroyed in the judgment. That's sobering. It's heart-wrenching. But it should not be enough for us to linger where we shouldn't have been. It's like he has showed mercy unto him. And he told him to go tell him, didn't he? Didn't the angel give him time? Didn't the angel tell him, say, listen, go tell him, go get him. Go get him. I wonder how sad it was, Lot walking back to the house after his own family had just mocked him knowing what's about to take place. And then I wonder what rung through Lot's ears whenever the angel says, go on, get out of here, for I can do nothing until thou hast come up hither, out of here, till you got out of this area. In other words, he had to be out of the blast zone, out of the fallout zone, because what was about to happen was worse than any nuclear bomb could have ever went off. Because God was fixing to open up heaven and rain down fire and brimstone and destroy that whole area. By the way, that well-watered plains of Sodom were destroyed with Sodom. There were several smaller cities around. How far was he? Say, well, man, he must have had to go a long ways. That must have took quite a while. I remind you, at the perch where Abraham's at, he walks out where he had talked with the Lord about this. He walks out and he looks. I don't know how high a mountain that is, but I'm assuming that it's a very high place where that Abraham was, where he walked out and looked. And he looked out across that plateau, that valley, and he saw the smoke rising from Sodom and Gomorrah. And he knew that God had judged them. But God had gave him a promise. When he saw the smoke, his heart may have fell. Because at that point, I'm not real sure that Abraham knew that Lot was out. But when he saw the smoke, he knew that God had not found 10 righteous souls. Because had he found 10 in there, there wouldn't be that smoke. One of these days, our heart's going to fall. When the judgment comes. And we may not know right off who made it and who didn't. You say, well, preacher, when we get to heaven and everything, listen, we're talking about a judgment of God. And things are going to happen so fast. We're not going to have time to run and get our children. What does it cost? What it cost Lot? It cost Lot not only everything possession-wise that he had, all of his family, even his 2 daughters, committed wickedness with him, getting him drunk on purpose, having sex with him so that they could get pregnant. And they had sons. And the first one named the son Moab. Ended up being a nation, a wicked nation, a nation that would fight against the people of God over and over. Another one came along, was even worse than him. His name was Ben-ammi. No, Ben-ammi was his name, and he was a son of Ammon. Ammon. Another wicked nation that was an oppressing nation to Israel. Ammon. I think it was B-E-N-M. Ben-ammi. Not Bimini, but Ben-ammi was his name. What a tragedy, amen? Yeah. Let us be warned by it, and let it be an example unto us. That while he lingered, the angels grabbed his hands and yanked him out. And Lot's wife, as I said, we could be compassionate to Lot in some ways for the connections that he had, the family that he had, but what about his wife? Look at the connections that she had. A mama ain't going to give up on her kids too easy. A mama had a home there. Most typically, and I ain't being mean, but most typically, a woman will be more tolerant to sin and ungodliness than the man will in a Christian home. In a Christian home, the man's usually the one that's more stern. And mama's the one that's usually saying, pleading with God, have mercy on her children. And Dad's like, he deserves it. He might hate it that that's happening, but he knows he deserves it. Lot is taken out. But Mrs. Lot turns around. And that was the fatal mistake. Fatal mistake. Stand with me if you will.